The most underestimated shooter in history, Unmasked, welcome to the channel, where quiet voices carry powerful stories. If this tale moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. A quiet legend returns and nothing will ever be the same again. Maggie Cole didn't belong here, or so they thought. She stepped through the front gates of Pine Ridge Shooting Grounds just past 7 a.m., wrapped in a faded green parka, the kind you'd find on a clearance rack in a rural Montana thrift store. Her boots were scuffed, well-worn, laced tight but loose around the ankles, and her hands clutched a rifle case patched at the hinges with old duct tape. To some, she looked like someone who had taken a wrong turn on the way to a farm supply store. But here, among polished carbon fiber cases and tactical brand gear, she was the punchline before the joke was told. Whispers started before she reached the check-in desk. A young instructor nudged his friend and smirked. Lost cowgirl cosplay? Another leaned in, tapping on his phone, live streaming without shame. The comments came fast. Is that a joke? Where's her horse? She's going to throw her shoulder out. One of the trainers joked loud enough for everyone to hear. If she scores more than 5, I'll walk out on my head. Laughter followed. Not cruel, just confident. The way people laugh when they're certain they've already figured someone out. No one asked her name. No one offered help. She was just the old lady with the taped-up case. A silver token, skidded across the gravel near her feet. Someone had tossed it underhand, the word janitor shift written in black marker. She didn't look down. She didn't stop. She stepped right over it. Up on the balcony, 2 instructors leaned on the rail with coffee in hand. One raised a brow and chuckled. Might be the first time someone brings a mop to the 1,000-yard line. The other laughed into his cup. Below them, Maggie walked in silence, steady, unbothered by the sound of voices bouncing off concrete and steel. Inside the range lounge, polished wood and brass gleamed beneath trophy cases. The staff wore matching fleece quarter zips, badges, clipped with confidence. No one looked up when she passed. A junior marksman on the leather couch glanced over and whispered, "Probably someone's aunt. Let her wander. She'll find the gift shop eventually." But she didn't stop, she didn't smile, she didn't blink. Maggie's boots struck the polished concrete in slow, deliberate rhythm. One step, then another. She moved like someone who wasn't lost at all. And still not a single person asked who she was. No one recognized the quiet resolve behind the worn coat, or the way she carried her rifle. Not with pride, but with purpose. They only saw the tape. They only saw her. They only saw what they wanted to believe, that she didn't belong. But Maggie Cole didn't come here to be seen. She came to remind them what they had forgotten, and she hadn't even picked up her rifle yet. She didn't say a word. When Maggie Cole reached her assigned firing lane, the crowd behind her hadn't quieted. Phones were still up, jokes were still flying. Somewhere near the benches, someone whispered, "She probably brought a musket." Another voice added, "Bet she doesn't even hit the target, not once." She knelt slowly, set down her case, and unlatched it. The old locks cracked open, left side first, then right. The sound was subtle, but it cut through the noise like a rifle report. Her hands moved with precision, not rushing, not stalling, just steady. The way someone moves when they've done something hundreds of times before, in rain, wind, or snow. From the viewing deck, a young competitor exaggerated his prone position, then rolled to the side, groaning like he'd thrown out his back. Laughter rippled through the upper levels. Even the announcer couldn't resist, his voice dry over the loudspeaker. Entry number 9, mock qualifier, no team listed. Good luck to our guest shooter. She ignored it all. Maggie unfolded her mat, laid her coat beside her boots, and lifted the rifle from its case. The wooden stock was scratched and aged but cared for. The scope looked vintage, dull around the edges but clear through the glass. She didn't apologize for it. She didn't explain. From the deck, a woman in a branded vest leaned in toward her teammate and muttered, "Who let Grandma sign up?" Another chuckled, shaking his head. "She's gonna get knocked right off that mat." But Maggie's face never changed. She lay down flat, adjusting her sling and resting her cheek on the stock with the quiet ease of muscle memory. Then, from the side pocket of her case, she pulled out a notebook, soft leather, worn at the corners, pages full of handwritten ballistics data, angles, wind calls, dials, tiny calculations in fading pencil lead. She scanned one line, nodded, and closed it gently. Then silence. A silver whistle cut through the air. The range lights turned amber, then green. The digital scoreboard blinked to life. Entry number 9. Active. No name, no affiliation. Just the number. 1. Breath in, 1 breath out, stillness, and then bang, the sound wasn't loud. It was clean, crisp. The kind of shot that doesn't echo, it lands center. The red dot lit up on the target screen, blinking once before settling dead in the middle of the bullseye. Nobody laughed. Maggie cycled the bolt, slid the next round into place and fired again. Same target, same hole. No adjustment needed. The room didn't go silent. It froze. By the time the third round landed, someone near the lounge sat down and put his drink on the floor without realizing. The scoreboard operator stopped toggling lanes. The livestream chat slowed. No wind correction, no spotter, no fancy gear, just her. She had barely moved. But in 3 shots, Maggie Cole had turned the entire range into an audience, and she was only getting started. The 5th shot landed, and still no one clapped. They weren't sure if they should. What had started as a joke had turned into something no one could explain. 10 minutes ago, she was just a stranger with duct tape on her case. Now, Maggie Cole had buried 5 rounds inside a circle no wider than a dime. Dead center, no assist, no adjustment. A hush settled over the range like a fog. Nobody dared to speak too loudly, afraid to interrupt whatever was happening on lane 9. On the upper deck, a range tech stared at his screen. The laser system had started lagging, too many impacts landing in the same exact spot. The sensor had to re-register. The center point. "This can't be right," he muttered. But it was. 6, 7, 8. Each shot stacked perfectly. Down below, Maggie's breath stayed steady. Her cheek never lifted from the worn rifle stock. Her finger never twitched. She didn't even blink when the crowd finally stopped trying to guess when she'd fail, because she wasn't here to prove them wrong. She was here to remind them who built the ground they were standing on. Then came the 9th shot. The grouping on the screen pulsed red. So tight the heat signature looked like one continuous dot. The live stream chat froze. Someone in the scoring tower reached for the emergency comms line, but didn't press it. They just watched. And then, shot 10, silence, no flash, no celebration, just a single red dot glowing where every shot had landed. And then, the scoreboard blinked. 100. Entry. Number 9, verified. No errors. A wave rippled through the crowd. Not a cheer, not a gasp, just stillness. Like the whole field had forgotten how to breathe. And that's when he appeared. No one saw him enter. No escort, no announcement. An older man in a weathered military coat stepped toward the far wall, the donor wall. His posture was straight, but his movements were quiet, measured. The kind of man who didn't need to be introduced. He walked to the far left panel where a glossy vinyl banner advertised a corporate sponsor's rifle scope. Without a word, he reached for the corner and peeled it back. Slow, deliberate. Beneath the banner, untouched and polished, was a brass plaque. It read, "Margaret Cole Founding Contributor, Trajectory Systems and Ballistics Interface Design Lead." Pine Ridge performance grid gasps echoed from the viewing deck. People turned. Phones dropped. The jokes died where they stood, because now they knew. She hadn't just shown up to prove a point. She had returned to the very system she helped build, and let it speak for her. Her rifle wasn't a relic. It was history. Her data wasn't guesswork. It was the code their entire scoring system still used. And without saying a word, she had just reminded them. Legacy doesn't always look the way you expect. Sometimes it wears thrift store boots and carries tape on the hinges. Sometimes it walks right through the middle of doubt and leaves it speechless. She didn't bow. She didn't wave. Maggie Cole just stood at the edge of the firing mat, one hand resting gently on her rifle, her coat folded neatly beneath her arm. The scoreboard behind her still glowed. 100.0. A perfect score. No decimals. No deductions. Not a single error. And still, no one moved. Across the benches, some competitors sat frozen, half-gloved hands motionless over their gear. Others stared at the brass plaque the general had just uncovered. Her name was there. Not in neon lights, not with flair or rank. Just 3 lines, clean and bold, beneath the polished metal. She hadn't come here for recognition. She came to reclaim a truth that had been buried. And now that it had surfaced, she didn't need to say a word, but the room around her did. Back in the main office, a junior staffer reached into the trash bin and pulled out the laminated badge she'd been given at check-in. Visitor. He brushed off the corner, then hesitated. Instead of tossing it back, he slipped it into a glass display case used for retired patches and legacy range artifacts. No label, no ceremony, just quiet reverence. That same afternoon, one of the instructors, older, quieter, walked the length of the donor wall alone. He paused where the vinyl banner had been, where Maggie's name had once been hidden. Without saying anything, he called for a maintenance order. Spotlight installation, immediate, direct beam. By sundown, the brass plaque glowed under a narrow, white light. Just enough to be seen, never flashy. Just enough to be remembered. And she didn't stay for it. By the time the spotlight was installed, Maggie was already gone. No footage captured her leaving. No signature on the exit sheet. Just one still frame from the live feed. Her silhouette walking away from the mat, rifle case shut, boots trailing gravel in the dying light. The perfect 10-shot grouping still hovered on the scoreboard, untouched. No one dared step into lane 9. Not yet. But her presence didn't leave with her body. It lingered, in the way voices lowered near the mat, in the way competitors stared longer at their scopes, in the way staff reviewed footage in silence, not to critique, but to understand. By the end of the week, Pine Ridge quietly amended its official code of conduct. A single new line was added. Performance is not determined by pedigree. And beneath that, in small italic print, inspired by entry 9, score 100.0, verified. They didn't mention her name. They didn't need to. Back in the scoring lab during a late-night software update, a programmer noticed something in the source credits. Buried deep in the metadata of the ballistics interface, trajectory module. Designed and donated, M. Cole. There it was. No announcement. No press release. Just truth. Placed exactly where it belonged. And that's the legacy Maggie Cole left behind. Not one built on applause, but one that rewrote the rules in silence and made everyone listen anyway. Weeks passed. The buzz around entry 9 faded from the live streams, but not from the range itself. Her score remained pinned at the top of the board, untouched. Her name, though rarely spoken, had become a kind of legend whispered in hallways and locker rooms, not with noise, but with weight. And then, one Saturday morning, just after first, a new girl arrived. She couldn't have been more than 17, slender build. Wore second-hand boots too big for her frame. Her denim jacket was frayed at the cuffs and she carried a canvas gear bag slung over her shoulder. She said little, signed in quietly, waited alone near the benches. The instructors, didn't recognize her. No one did. But when her number was called, she didn't head straight to the line. Instead, she walked the full length of the donor wall. Her eyes scanned each brass plaque, name by name, pausing just briefly at the one now lit from above. Margaret Cole. She didn't touch it, but she smiled. Just below the plaque, where concrete met brass, 3 initials had been pressed deep into the foundation during the last renovation. MCC, no fanfare, no dedication, just the mark of someone who had laid the foundation and then walked away without needing credit. The girl crouched, brushed her thumb across the initials, and nodded. 20. She finally reached her lane. She moved like someone trying not to be seen. Her gear was basic: entry-level rifle, standard scope, no sponsors, no tech support. Her shots were scattered, wide, a few missed entirely. But her breathing was steady, her posture calm. Her hands didn't shake, and the range noticed. Not because of her grouping, but because she didn't flinch. She didn't complain. She adjusted, learned, and reset with quiet grit, the way someone once did before her. On the observation deck, one of the younger shooters leaned toward a friend and whispered, "She reminds me of someone." His voice trailed off. The name never came, but the thought lingered. Back in the main office, a staffer passed the same glass display where Maggie's old visitor badge now rested. He paused, looked at the plastic rectangle sealed behind the glass. No name tag, no label, just the word visitor, sun-faded and silent. And then he smiled. That winter, Pine Ridge Training Grounds launched a mentorship program, unofficial at first. Just instructors offering extra hours. Just veterans keeping the lanes open a little longer. But everyone knew where the idea had come from, and nobody had to say her name, because every girl who showed up in thrifted boots, every kid with a taped-up case and a quiet look in their eye, they were here because someone had come before them. Someone who never asked to be seen. Someone who didn't demand a platform. She simply showed up. She simply delivered. And in doing so, rewrote the definition of greatness. That's what legacy really means. Not being remembered by everyone, but being remembered by the right ones. If this story moved you, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, based on how they looked, where they came from, or what they carried on their shoulders? Or maybe you've been that person, the one underestimated, overlooked, dismissed before you had a chance to speak. Let's talk about that. Where are you watching from? What part of the world are you in when this story found its way to you? We'd love to hear your perspective, whether you're a shooter, a teacher, a mother, a veteran, or just someone who understands the power of silence and resilience. Do you believe legacy is something we leave behind, or something we live every day through quiet strength? Leave a comment, share your story. You never know who's reading and needs to hear it, and if there's someone in your life who's ever been written off, send them this video. Remind them, recognition doesn't come from noise. It comes from doing the work, holding your ground, and letting the results speak louder than words.